Hey everyone, welcome back. Before we jump in, I want to say a huge thank you for being here and send you all my very best wishes for great health and happiness. Seriously, taking care of yourselves is the most important thing. Today, we're tackling a question that seems simple, but is actually incredibly fascinating. Why are some of us left-handed and others right-handed? You probably use your dominant hand every single day without even thinking about it, but have you ever wondered what's really going on inside your body and brain that makes you reach for that pencil, throw that ball, or swing that hammer with your left or your right? Let's dive in and uncover the mystery. It's one of the most obvious differences between people. Roughly 90% of us are right-handed, about 10% are left-handed, and a small number of people are ambidextrous or mixed-handed, meaning they can use both hands pretty well for different tasks. For the longest time, people had all sorts of guesses and myths about handedness. Some cultures thought being left-handed was unlucky or even sinister. That word actually comes from the Latin word for left. Others believed it was a sign of creativity or genius. While there might be some interesting correlations, the real reasons are much more complex and rooted in our biology, specifically our brains and our genes. It's not a simple choice or something you learn. It's woven into you from a very early stage. The biggest player in this story is your brain. You know your brain has two halves, or hemispheres, the left and the right. These hemispheres aren't identical twins. They specialize in different jobs. For most people, the left hemisphere is the superstar when it comes to language, talking, understanding words, reading, and writing. It's also the main boss for controlling fine, detailed movements, especially with your hands. Now, here's the crucial part. The left hemisphere of your brain controls the right side of your body, and the right hemisphere controls the left side. So, because the left hemisphere is usually the dominant one for language and detailed motor control, it naturally takes charge of the right hand for those precise tasks. That's why most people are right-handed. Their dominant brain hemisphere is controlling their dominant hand. For left-handers, the situation is often different. Their brain organization is less predictable. Sometimes, the right hemisphere is stronger for language, meaning it takes control of the left hand. Sometimes, the control for hand use is shared more equally between the hemispheres. This difference in brain wiring is a fundamental reason why handedness exists. But how does your brain get wired this way? That's where things get really interesting, and genetics come into the picture. Scientists know that handedness runs in families. If both your parents are left-handed, you have a higher chance of being left-handed yourself compared to if both are right-handed. However, it's not as straightforward as inheriting blue eyes or brown hair. There isn't a single left-handed gene that you either have or don't have. Instead, it seems like multiple genes are involved, each having a small influence. Think of it like a recipe with many ingredients. Different combinations of these genetic factors can tip the balance towards preferring the left hand or the right hand. Researchers have identified a few specific genes that seem to be linked to handedness, often involved in how the brain develops asymmetrically, meaning one side becomes more specialized than the other, very early on. But even with these genes, the picture isn't complete. Identical twins who share nearly 100% of their DNA don't always share the same handedness. One might be right-handed and the other left-handed. This tells us that genes are important, but they aren't the whole story. Something else must be influencing how these genetic instructions play out. This brings us to the world of prenatal development. What happens inside the womb before you're born? Scientists believe that factors during pregnancy can interact with your genetic blueprint to influence which hand becomes dominant. One major theory involves hormones, particularly testosterone. Exposure to different levels of hormones in the womb might affect how the brain's hemispheres develop and specialize. For instance, some studies suggest higher prenatal testosterone exposure might be linked to a higher chance of left-handedness. Another factor could be very subtle differences in how the spinal cord develops early on, even before the brain fully takes over controlling movement. There might also be random variations in development, tiny, unpredictable events that occur as the brain and nervous system are forming, nudging the system towards using one hand more than the other. The developing brain is incredibly complex, and small differences in timing or environment during those critical early weeks and months can have lasting effects. So, we have brain wiring, genetics, and prenatal development all playing a role. But what about after you're born? Does the environment or what people teach you affect your handedness? For the vast majority of people, handedness seems pretty fixed very early in life. You can see signs even in babies. A baby might show a preference for sucking one thumb over the other, or consistently reach for toys with the same hand, long before anyone tries to teach them which hand to use. While parents or teachers might encourage a child to use their right hand, especially in the past, when left-handedness was often discouraged or seen negatively, this doesn't actually change the child's fundamental biological preference. Trying to force a naturally left-handed child to use their right hand can be frustrating and confusing for them, and it doesn't rewire their brain. Their underlying neural pathways are still wired for left-hand dominance. The environment might influence how easily a left-hander navigates a right-handed world, think scissors, desks, can openers, but it doesn't create the handedness itself. Your core preference is baked in. You might also wonder about people who seem comfortable using both hands. True ambidexterity, being equally skilled with both hands for all tasks, is quite rare. More common is mixed-handedness, where someone might write with their left hand but throw a ball with their right, or use different hands for different activities. This might reflect an even more balanced brain organization, where neither hemisphere has a strong, clear dominance for motor control. Sometimes, people develop skills with their non-dominant hand due to necessity, like an injury, or through intense practice, like musicians or athletes. But their underlying natural preference usually remains for their original dominant hand. Now, let's talk about the perks and the quirks. Being left-handed in a world designed mostly for right-handers can certainly have its minor annoyances: smudged writing, awkward scissors, spiral notebooks that dig into your hand. But are there any real advantages or disadvantages? Studies looking for links between handedness and things like intelligence, creativity, or health have produced mixed and often controversial results. Some research suggests left-handers might be slightly more common in certain creative professions or might have an advantage in some interactive sports like tennis or fencing, possibly because their movements can be less predictable to right-handed opponents. Other studies have looked at potential correlations with very slight differences in the risk of certain neurological conditions or immune disorders, but these findings are complex, often small, and far from conclusive. It's important to remember that correlation doesn't equal causation. The vast majority of left-handers are perfectly healthy and span the full range of human abilities and talents, just like right-handers. The differences, if any, are subtle statistical trends, not defining characteristics. Left-handedness isn't a disability or a superpower, it's simply a natural variation in human biology. Looking through an evolutionary lens, why does this variation exist at all? Why isn't everyone right-handed? This is still an open question. Having a population where most individuals have consistent brain lateralization, like language and fine motor control centered in the left hemisphere, probably makes learning and communication more efficient. But maintaining a minority of left-handers might offer an evolutionary advantage through diversity. Think of it like a sports team. If every player had exactly the same skills and strategies, they'd be predictable and easier to beat. Having players with different strengths and approaches makes the team more adaptable. Similarly, in early human groups, having some left-handed individuals might have been beneficial in combat or tool use, providing an element of surprise or a different perspective. This idea is sometimes called the fighting hypothesis. The unexpected angle of attack from a left-hander could be advantageous. While hard to prove definitively for our ancient ancestors, the consistent presence of a left-handed minority across human populations and throughout history suggests that this variation wasn't weeded out by natural selection. It might have even been subtly favored. So, putting it all together, what makes you left or right-handed? It's a beautiful, complex dance between your genes, the intricate development of your brain and nervous system before you were born, and the resulting wiring that sets up which hemisphere takes the lead for precise motor control. This wiring dictates which hand your brain naturally prefers to send its most detailed commands to. While the environment you grow up in and the tools you use are designed for the right-handed majority, they don't create your handedness. They just shape how you interact with the world. It's a fundamental part of your neural blueprint. Whether you write, eat, or throw with your left hand or your right, it's a testament to the incredible variation in how human brains are organized. There's no right way or wrong way, just your unique way, shaped by biology deep within you from the very beginning. So, next time you pick up your pen or your coffee cup, give a little nod to your amazing brain for making it feel so effortless. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Take care, stay curious, and I truly hope you have a fantastic and healthy day.